In today's lesson, we will be looking at the distribution or describing the distribution of graphs. Distribution just means that the way a graph looks, or how the data points are spread out. If we look at this first graph on the left, we see a gap between the data. The gap shows right here on the far left of the graph. A gap is just that there's no data value there. This graph, however, if we look at where the numbers are grouped together, the tail of the graph is to the left. So we call this graph skewed left. The graph on the right side is considered skewed right because the tail of the graph is to the right. This is one way to remember the difference between skewed left and skewed right. It's whichever end the tail would be on. A bimodal graph shows that there are two peaks in the graph, where this graph on the far right shows just one peak, and it's called a bell shape because the center is with the highest point. The peak is your most frequently occurring value, or your mode. Number one, how would you describe the spread of the distribution to the right? Well, if we look at this, the tail of the graph is to the right. So this graph is not symmetrical. It's not a bell-shaped where it's even on both sides. It is skewed to the right, and it peaks, or the mode is at 1. So when you're describing a graph, you always want to describe whether it's symmetric, bell-shaped, or not symmetric, if it's skewed right or left, and where the peak occurs, or if there is no peak. If there's a number that doesn't fit the rest of the numbers, like there's a gap and then another number, that number is called an outlier. It doesn't quite fit the rest of the numbers, and you would always want to describe that also. How would you describe the spread of the distribution to the left in complete sentences? Well, this one is symmetric because it goes up in the middle and then curves back down. And it peaks at 50. It is neither skewed left nor right.